Have you ever felt that strange feeling of being lost, even surrounded by people? Have you ever woken up on a seemingly normal day and thought, wow, there's something missing in here? Well, that's not just in your head. There is an invisible but totally real force that can fill this void in a way that nothing and no one can. A lot of people try to fill this gap with work, relationships, travel, or even binge-watching series non-stop. I know. I've tried it too. But at the end of the day, the silence screams louder. What if I told you that there is a supernatural power capable of guiding every step, bringing peace in the midst of chaos, and completely transforming your life? I'm talking about Espiritu Santo. Yes, the Holy Spirit is God. He is not just any energy or a passing good feeling. He is the third person of the Trinity, the divine presence that wants to dwell in you, to be your comforter, your spiritual guide, your source of strength when the whole world seems to want to bring you down. In this video, I'm going to show you how the Holy Spirit can become your daily companion, how he can renew your mind, free your heart, and bring you to a level of communion with God that you can't even imagine possible. But beware, it stays until the end. You will discover secrets that many people spend their whole lives without realizing, and who knows? Today may be the day that changes everything for you. When we talk about Espiritu Santo, many people think only of that image of the dove, flying, or a gentle wind during an emotional service. But the Holy Spirit is much more than that. The Holy Spirit is God. He is part of the Trinity, along with the Father and the Son. It is not a mystical energy or an impersonal force. He has the personality, will, and supernatural power to transform any life. Knowing this truth completely changes our view of the Christian life and relationship with the Holy Spirit. The Bible makes this very clear. In Matthew 28:19, Jesus commands baptism in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, showing that he is God equally. In Acts 5, Peter says that lying to the Holy Spirit is lying to God, reinforcing his divinity. Isaiah 6 shows how holy and glorious the divine presence of the Holy Spirit is. The Trinity is not a concept to confuse, but an invitation to immerse oneself in communion with God in a complete way. Metaphors such as fire, wind, water, and the dove itself help us to understand aspects of the Holy Spirit. Fire purifies, the wind blows where it wants, water quenches and renews. But we can't get caught up in these pretty pictures alone. We need to understand that he is someone with whom we can have daily fellowship. The Holy Spirit is the promised comforter, the spiritual guide who leads us to God's will and strengthens us in the Christian mission. When you begin to realize that the Holy Spirit is not distant but present, everything changes. He wants to be part of your choices, your battles, and your victories. It is he who reveals truth to us, gives us divine direction and supernatural power to live a life of holiness. And that's where spiritual transformation really begins, because you understand that you're not alone. The divine presence walks with you in every detail. We tend to underestimate how much the Holy Spirit is involved in everything, from the beginning. Back in Genesis, we already see the Spirit of God hovering over the waters, participating in the creation of the heavens and the earth. In Job, he is described as giving life to all that exists. This shows that the Holy Spirit is not an extra in history, but the very power of the Holy Spirit acting in every detail, bringing order to chaos and life to what was dead. When we talk about resurrection, we immediately think of Jesus, but it is the Holy Spirit who raised him from the dead, Romans 1:4. That same supernatural power is available today to transform lives, heal wounds, and free hearts. The Holy Spirit also casts out demons, Matthew 12:28, and convicts the world of sin, righteousness, and judgment, John 16:8. You can't live the Christian faith without recognizing his constant action. In addition to works, the attributes of the Holy Spirit are impressive. He is eternal, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. It means that he is everywhere, knows everything, has unlimited power, and will never end. This brings enormous comfort because we know that our Christian life is in the hands of a God who is not limited to time or space. He is the source of spiritual renewal, our spiritual guide, and our comforter in any and all situations. When we meditate on these truths, we begin to see divine direction in every step we take. The Holy Spirit not only works big miracles, He also works in the small details of everyday life. From a piece of wise advice you give to a friend to an important decision about your Christian ministry, it is He who empowers us in evangelism, strengthens our obedience to God, and reveals God's will at every stage. And that, my friend, is only the beginning of what He can do. One of the biggest confusions that many people make is to think that the Holy Spirit is just a force or a good feeling. But He is not an energy loose in the air. The Holy Spirit is a person. He thinks, feels, speaks, intercedes, and relates to us in a real and profound way. When we understand the personality of the Holy Spirit, our fellowship with God becomes alive and purposeful, far beyond a mechanical religious practice. In the Bible, we see several clear evidences of the personality of the Holy Spirit. In John 15:26, Jesus says that the Holy Spirit testifies, that is, He confirms the truth. In John 16, He is presented as the one who guides, comforts, teaches, and reveals the will of God. The Holy Spirit speaks to us, not only through audible words, but also through prayer, meditation, Bible reading, and even in small whispers in our hearts. In addition, the Holy Spirit feels emotions. He can rejoice, feel sorrow and grieve when we do not follow divine direction or when we ignore His presence. It is He who strengthens us to live in holiness and to fulfill the Christian ministry with love and dedication. As we recognize the personality of the Holy Spirit, we experience a spiritual transformation that leads us to bear true and lasting spiritual fruit. Having a relationship with the Holy Spirit is like walking with a loyal friend who knows our pains, joys, and secrets. He comforts us on the hardest nights, inspires us in moments of doubt, and pushes us when we think about giving up. The divine presence of the Holy Spirit is a daily invitation to live in communion with God, obey His will, and participate in the Christian mission of spreading God's love. He wants to be your best friend and partner every step of life. The Holy Spirit not only thinks and feels, He also deeply knows all that we are. He probes the depths of our heart and understands even what we try to hide from ourselves. He knows every tear shed, every silent prayer, and every dream kept deep in the soul. The Holy Spirit is the only one capable of revealing who we really are before God and showing us what needs to be healed and transformed. In addition to knowing, the Holy Spirit also feels emotions intensely. He loves us with God's love, feels sorrow when we drift away, and rejoices when we take steps toward holiness. In Romans 8:26, we see that He intercedes for us with groanings that cannot be uttered, living proof that He cares about every detail of our journey. This strengthens our Christian faith and motivates us to seek more intimacy and fellowship with God. Another incredible point is the will of the Holy Spirit. He distributes spiritual gifts as He chooses, directs plans, and conducts ministries in unique ways. We are not the ones who use the Holy Spirit for our personal projects. It is He who desires to use us to accomplish God's will. So living a true Christian life means being sensitive to His voice, ready to obey, and willing to let Him shape every step. When we understand these personal attributes, our life gains a new perspective. The Holy Spirit is not an accessory in our journey, but the center that sustains everything. He guides us in evangelism, strengthens our Christian ministry, and inspires us to live a life of ongoing worship. Cultivating this deep relationship transforms our ordinary routine into a fertile field for miracles, spiritual fruit, and deliverance. He is, in fact, the greatest gift God could ever give us. Many people still see the Holy Spirit as a helper to achieve personal goals, but the truth is that He was not sent to be used by us. It is just the opposite. It is we who must allow ourselves to be used by him as living instruments in the Christian mission. When we truly surrender, we begin to live in obedience to God, perceiving divine direction in the simple details of everyday life. Cultivating a relationship with the Holy Spirit is like watering a plant. It requires daily care, patience, and attention. Prayer and meditation on the Word are practical ways to deepen that intimacy. Set aside quiet time to listen for what He has to say, write down promptings, and practice active listening. You will be amazed at how much He wants to reveal Himself, show God's will, and strengthen your Christian life. Our Christian ministry and evangelism only make sense if they are guided by the Holy Spirit. Doing something just out of ambition or personal recognition leaves us empty and tired. When we let the Spirit lead, our actions carry supernatural power, bear true spiritual fruit, and touch lives in ways we could never do on our own. He is the force behind every word and every gesture of love. Maintaining communion with the Holy Spirit also means having the courage to change. He shows us areas that need to be transformed, strengthens our holiness, and renews our spirit. This journey can be challenging, but it is full of freedom and joy. By making room for Him to act, we experience a spiritual transformation that goes far beyond what we imagined. After all, living guided by the Spirit is the greatest adventure of the Christian faith. The greatest sign that one walks with the Holy Spirit is not the number of followers, nor the beautiful words, but the fruit of the Spirit. In Galatians 5:22-23, we see a powerful list: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These spiritual fruits are like a mirror that reveals how much the divine presence is alive in us. There is no point in talking about the power of the Holy Spirit without demonstrating spiritual transformation in practice. This change does not happen overnight. It's a constant process, a journey of growth. The Holy Spirit works in our character, stirs hidden habits, and polishes the areas that need healing. You know that negative thought that haunts you every now and then? Or that mania for acting on impulse? All this He helps to transform. It is a true spiritual renewal that impacts every choice, every relationship, and every word. That is why it is so important not to grieve the Holy Spirit, Ephesians 4:30. When we ignore His touches and resist His divine direction, we block the work He wants to do. He is our comforter, the spiritual guide who helps us to walk the path of holiness and the will of God. To live in communion with the Spirit is to walk in obedience, even when it is difficult or goes against our momentary will. And the most beautiful thing is to realize how this transformation is not just in us. As we change, we impact those around us. People begin to notice something different, a light, a peace that does not come from this world. This opens doors for evangelization, strengthens our Christian ministry, and invites us to spread God's love. Transformation by the Holy Spirit is not just a gift to us, it is a mission that multiplies in lives around us. Many people still think that worship is limited to singing in the service or listening to a gospel song on the headphones. But worshiping the Holy Spirit goes far beyond that. It's a way of life. Every choice, every word, and every thought can be an act of worship. When we live in communion with God, we seek to please the Holy Spirit in all that we do, transforming even the simplest tasks into a way of honoring His divine presence. To worship is to surrender. It is to say, Holy Spirit, I do not know everything, but I trust that your divine direction is always better. It is to relinquish control and allow Him to guide our way, even when it doesn't make sense to our eyes. The Christian life becomes much lighter and more meaningful when we understand that we were created to worship, not just with songs, but with a lifetime dedicated to God's will. Such genuine worship also sets us free. In 2 Corinthians 3:17 it is written, "Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty." When we worship, experience the supernatural power of the Holy Spirit, are healed, strengthened, and renewed. Worship connects us to God's love in a deep and intimate way, creating an environment conducive to spiritual transformation and the emergence of spiritual fruit. Worship is not limited to a moment. It invades our conversations, relationships, and decisions. The Holy Spirit wants to teach us to live each moment as a living offering. Imagine starting the day by asking, "Holy Spirit, how can I worship you today?" This mentality changes everything, our way of working, of serving, of speaking, and of loving. And the more we worship, the more we experience the divine presence in a real way, strengthening our Christian faith and our Christian ministry. We have arrived at the most important moment, the invitation for you to experience something completely new. The Holy Spirit does not want to be just theoretical knowledge in your mind, but a living reality in your heart. He desires to be your comforter, your spiritual guide, your daily strength, and the source of all God's love. Maybe you're tired of fighting alone, trying to get it right without knowing where to start. Today, He reaches out and says, "I am here. Let me take care of you." Approach Him with sincerity. It doesn't need pretty words or complicated rituals. All it takes is a willing heart. Take a moment today to pray and say, "Holy Spirit, I really want to know you." Start meditating on the Word. Look for materials and devotionals that talk about the relationship with the Holy Spirit. Cultivating this intimacy will lead you to a spiritual transformation that you can't even imagine. Don't keep this message to yourself. The world needs God's divine presence and love more than ever. Share it with your friends, family, church group, and even anyone you think you'll never hear. The Holy Spirit gives us supernatural power for evangelism, strength to fulfill our Christian mission, and courage to be light where there is darkness. When you share, you become part of a great work of spiritual liberation and renewal. Be bold in your Christian faith. Let the Holy Spirit lead you to places you never thought you'd go. Trust in divine direction for your ministry, your dreams, and your daily decisions. Remember, to live in obedience to God is to live in true freedom. And every time you feel fear or doubt, go back to your secret place and ask the Spirit to renew your strength, ignite your inner fire, and remind you of the promise of eternal fellowship. Now, I want to invite you to be part of this journey. If this content spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave your like. This way, you stay on top of more messages that will strengthen your Christian life and bring you closer to the Holy Spirit. Let us spread God's love together, live guided by the Comforter, and show the world the power of the Holy Spirit. Don't leave it for later. The time is now. The Spirit is calling you. We have arrived at the most important moment, the invitation for you to experience something completely new. The Holy Spirit does not want to be just theoretical knowledge in your mind, but a living reality in your heart. He desires to be your comforter, your spiritual guide, your daily strength, and the source of all God's love. Maybe you're tired of fighting alone, trying to get it right without knowing where to start. Today, He reaches out and says, "I am here. Let me take care of you." Approach Him with sincerity. It doesn't need pretty words or complicated rituals. All it takes is a willing heart. Take a moment today to pray and say, "Holy Spirit, I really want to know you." Start meditating on the Word. Look for materials and devotionals that talk about the relationship with the Holy Spirit. Cultivating this intimacy will lead you to a spiritual transformation that you can't even imagine. Don't keep this message to yourself. The world needs God's divine presence and love more than ever. Share it with your friends, family, church group, and even anyone you think you'll never hear. The Holy Spirit gives us supernatural power for evangelism, strength to fulfill our Christian mission, and courage to be light where there is darkness. When you share, you become part of a great work of spiritual liberation and renewal. Be bold in your Christian faith. Let the Holy Spirit lead you to places you never thought you'd go. Trust in divine direction for your ministry, your dreams, and your daily decisions. Remember, to live in obedience to God is to live in true freedom. And every time you feel fear or doubt, go back to your secret place and ask the Spirit to renew your strength, ignite your inner fire, and remind you of the promise of eternal fellowship. Now I want to invite you to be part of this journey. If this content spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave your like. This way, you stay on top of more messages that will strengthen your Christian life and bring you closer to the Holy Spirit. Let us spread God's love together, live guided by the Comforter, and show the world the power of the Holy Spirit. Don't leave it for later. The time is now. The Spirit is calling you. The Spirit.